No, I'm not exaggerating, that was genuinely the best episode of Invincible we have ever gotten. It was incredibly narratively impressive, had some amazing action sequences, and developed the plot in the best way possible. Spoiler warning beware, lock in and subscribe, and let's break down Season 3, Episode 4 of Invincible, titled You Were My Hero. The episode begins pretty normally, with Ray and Rex just grocery shopping, and then Mark trying to figure out where the drone that was spying on him and his family came from. He believes Cecil is behind it, and after a brief confrontation that cost the government over $1 million, Mark flies away to Paris for his second first date with his shoddy. And that is all of the exposition that we get in this episode, and I think that's plenty. We're getting a minor update on side characters like Rex and Ray, reminded of the tension between Mark and Cecil, and then the episode just gets underway. The only new information from the first 7 minutes is we learn that Cecil and the GDA are still spying on the Graysons, and that no one has any idea where the drone is from, but everyone, including the GDA, is investigating it. Over in Paris, we see Dropkick and Fightmaster return to our timeline, but this time not trying to steal a national artifact. They explain that they're from a dystopian future and they need Invincible to come save them. Because we've met these two time travelers before in Season 3, Episode 1, this doesn't feel like a one-off side adventure. I mentioned before in my previous video that my biggest issue with Invincible is that there is just too much going on most of the time. And since we are already addressing these time travelers, this episode overcomes that problem, and this feels like an important aspect of the story. This episode really only covers 2 things, and because of that, it's able to really dive into these important moments and make them truly great. Mark going to the future to fight some mysterious king is a great setup, and they played the unknown identity of the king very well. By making it seem he would be a Viltrumite, it makes the suspense of this episode's first half that much better. The Immortal has always been kind of a lame side character, and the memes circulating about him at this point about how he's such a bum really prove that fact. And him getting the conclusion of becoming a psychotic and deranged ruler is a great twist, and it makes total sense too. The mental impact Immortal's incredibly long life has had on him is a completely logical and amazing plot twist. Because even though the Immortal is clearly superhuman, he is still a human. And our human brains aren't designed for thousands of years of existence. But the development of the Immortal is not the best part of this episode's first half, but instead the clues about the future that he drops while ranting to Mark. Mentioning that Mark was the Emperor, that he got sick and was weak at one point, that people have died because of Mark's mistakes, and most importantly, that Mark left Earth with his family long ago for some unknown reason. All these little clues of what's yet to come definitely raises some eyebrows. Also, if King Immortal thinks that Mark looks thin, does that mean that Mark gets wider? Or maybe just more jacked? And Immortal immediately body-shaming Mark is pretty funny, but yes, I know that wasn't actually his intention. It's just funny that that's the first thing he jumps to. The last few episodes of Season 2 and the first few episodes of Season 3 have made it a point to show Mark's changing nature, and show how he has grown more and more like his dad over time, and the fact that he's becoming progressively more violent. And with what the Immortal says, how much worse does it get? Where does Mark draw the line? Why does he leave Earth after apparently ruling over it as an emperor? Also, the performance of the Immortal in this episode is incredible. It is some of the best voice acting we've gotten in the entire show. Every single line is filled with such emotion. It feels like us, the audience, can feel the weight of every year this man has endured. And now I feel pretty bad for him. Yeah, in present times, he just kind of sits around while Mark does everything. But he's still a good character, I'm realizing. The dialogue of the Immortal has huge implications for the soon future of the story. But the show doesn't want us to think too much about the future for Mark. Because Mark just moves on and goes into semi-denial about what he just did to the Immortal, and then continues life as usual. The climax of Mark pulling Immortal's head off and then reflecting on his actions is such a good scene. But I think that Oliver and Mark's flight scene at the end of episode 3 is still the highlight of this season so far. In a pretty laughably surprising turn of events, the episode turns on the super meta and comedic commentary that I completely forgot this show doing. And now that I think about it, I remember it happening in previous episodes, but this whole narration and addressing the audience directly completely came out of nowhere while I was watching this episode. Like, Alan the alien locked down but not out. That's so funny. Not at all what I was expecting after the really deep moment of Mark pulling the literal head off of the Immortal, and then a love montage of Mark and Eve flying around with a Joji song in the background. Crazy turn of events. This leads us to the prison in space where Alan and Omni-Man are shacked up and chillin'. And the action we get in the second half of this episode is about as good as the action from this show gets. I mean, the Battle Beast finally returns after 2 seasons, so of course it's going to be amazing. Ever since his brief moments from season 1, that lion guy has been on my mind non-stop. Seeing him kick some Viltrumites in the teeth was legendary, and even though we don't get explicit confirmation that he killed that guy, I think it's pretty safe to assume that that guy didn't last much longer. Omni-Man and Alan teaming up and pancaking the brains of a Viltrumite is the culmination of their amazing friendship that I have been eagerly anticipating. Nolan finally giving in and deciding to stand up to the Viltrumite Empire is a moment that took a surprisingly long amount of time to come to pass. But the execution of this monumental occurrence for the story is perfect. Finally, we're gonna get Omni-Man and Mark back on the same side, except seeing Mark have to deal with this fact will definitely be interesting. And, of course, we all know that Oliver will probably happily accept his dad back, but Mark will probably have a little bit more trouble than Oliver will. The learning of the surprisingly low number of Viltrumites is actually great news. And even though I'm sure a handful of those less than 50 Viltrumites are vastly stronger than current Mark, Alan, and Nolan, this still gives us a glimmer of hope. The episode ends on the very open-ended note of Alan and Nolan floating out in space, and again, I really wanted to see Battle Beast come back, but I'm faithful we're gonna get more of him in the future. I also really wanted to see him just rip that Viltrumite in half, because I think he was fully capable of it. I mean, he sunk his claws into the dude's chest. There's no way that guy is winning. Not to mention, the introduction that Battle Beast got was harrowing. Him asking how many to learning he was going to be fighting Viltrumites is crazy. It is so relieving to finally have a character who is actually okay with fighting Viltrumites and isn't completely terrified of the idea. Battle Beast was about to just stay in that cell if he couldn't go fight Viltrumites. That's how committed this guy is to being the GOAT. He was literally about to kill Alan because he couldn't find a Viltrumite. That is aura. We better get to see that guy just rip a Viltrumite a new one, and no cuts, no pans away, I just want to see that fight. I don't want to see Alan, I don't want to see Omni-Man. As much as I love them, I want to see this lion guy just rip somebody in half. And just like that, by only focusing on a small handful of characters, this episode is quite possibly the best one in the entire series so far. Hopefully this becomes a continuing trend, because episodes full of random side characters that barely get any screen time is kind of boring me. I'm looking at you, Titan and the Order subplot. Nothing even happened there since season 1, yet it's getting randomly brought back up right now. Don't really see the point there. As long as the trend of incredibly good episodes continues, there is a very strong chance that this season becomes the best season of Invincible we have ever gotten. Let me know what you thought of the episode down below in the comments. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, hit the like button, and I will see you in the next one.